Hello, everybody. We are headed into another full moon in Capricorn. This is in addition to the July 4th Independence Day. Let the fireworks begin. And this is for the week of June 29th, last couple of days in June, into just after July 4th. 1 week. Let's go. Let's go surfing now. Everybody's learning how. This is not quite the Punisher shirt, but you get the idea. And there's going to be a Punisher on July 4th. I am excited to show you that alignment. Big, powerful, stellar alignments this week, and one of them being the full moon in Capricorn, and that's just one of the biggest influences. And I forgot to put the focus on. Here we go. We're looking for the biggest influence, and we do that triangulation on this slide. And then later, most importantly, we're going to triangulate for the solution or best behavior to enact for maximum success. All right, big energies coming. And what we have, you can see that obviously this is not really the stellar influence, but another big influence is July 4th. You can see the flag in the background. I've got that in the triangulation because it is an influence. And a big influence. Separately from that, we have the sun and the moon in opposite ends of the continuum, perfectly aligned for a full moon, the full moon in Capricorn. So that's on one side, and we have the sun in Cancer. We're going to go actually show you a real diagram. So just want to get you to orient to the biggest alignments happening. And I point you to these because it's in the triangulation process. First of all, we have obviously the biggest alignment is the full moon / sun in Cancer. That's on a continuum, and we'll talk about that ad nauseum. We also have some other big things, including things I haven't even listed here, like some retrogrades happening, or at least one of them, Neptune. But we already have some in. So those further out, slower planets that are all kind of heading into retrograde, except for Uranus. All the others will be, by the end of this week, I think, in the slow planets, all in retrograde. All right, so we have the I-Ching says nourishment. And just about when we combine all the stellar alignments together, I think we do get an urgency for nourishment. But what's interesting is the Dreambot has indulging in there, and that really speaks to the Venus-Mars in Leo, which is still a thing. It's still closing in on each other. They'll never really truly get to a true conjunction, but like last week, we had the primary influence is up here, Venus and Mars, and that's this alignment here, which has us probably wanting to indulge. And wanting, needing, passion is in there, experiences, big, powerful experiences is in there, and they're not even going to get to a full conjunction. So this is just I think a 4 degrees, and I think the maximum is just inside of 3 degrees is how close they'll get in Leo before Venus turns around and goes retrograde. So, but what is important to realize is that there's another alignment between Venus and Mars, and that's that parallel. The inclination is the same, so they're in the same speck of sky, making this intensity even stronger. It's already a very well known to be in an intense conjunction, and it makes it even more intense because they're parallel. And then Saturn will play a role in here. So we have indulging, which is too much, and we have nourishment, I-Ching, which says we need to get enough. So there's your continuum. There's the influence. I think the struggle this week is which one. You're going to be confused. Nourishing enough or indulging too much. You got to make sure you get enough, or maybe I'm in the not enough category versus the too much. And this is consuming. It's not just food and nourishment. It's in all things. Social is in there. Family is in there. Working is in there, or relaxing, working, relaxing. Balance. We're seeking balance. Sounds like a Libra thing. Libra is not a big item this week, but all things said, nourish versus indulging. Let's go. And if I've got this right, our big shout out is not for me to say, because he's turning 52 today. So happy birthday. Now, today is Wednesday, the 28th. Yes, Wednesday the 28th. So happy birthday, not for me to say. Thanks for telling us when your birthday is. Big shout out to you, and I hope you enjoy this day. All right, here's the Dreambot. I've zoomed in as much as I can, and I had these broken out into eating and drinking, like just enjoying like kind of nourishment, because that's a perfect match to the I-Ching. But then I realized that all these feels and excessiveness has more of an indulgent kind of a take. So I combined all those. The green arrows is a combining of previously two separate memes, and I have it indulging. And then, of course, the red arrows is clearly, there's a big time element here with hours and minutes and begin and done, all these things and Monday, 2023, all these references to time. Well, Saturn is the father time. We have other references like Uranus is more the kind of the future, but there's a time reference there, clearly in the collective unconscious. By the way, woke is still there. I have verified that it is still elevated in terms of frequency of use in the dreams, but it is starting to go down. So hopefully we'll start seeing the baseline, the new baseline be established in the Dreambot for the word woke, and then hence you're going to see that start to decay out any day now or any week now. All right, let's get back to the astrology now. Remembering that this Virgo full moon is inside of two other cycles. It's inside of the Gemini lunar cycle, and it's also inside of the bigger 6-month Aries eclipse cycle. All right, so it's in service of bringing out our inner warrior. Cycle within a cycle. All right. So, big picture here. We're in this last little bit of, let me darken it, last little bit of June, last 2 days of June, and a lot going on there. We'll get into all that. But here's your overview, just big, broad overview of July. Obviously, the July 4th, probably the most well-known event. But in terms of astrology, a day prior is that full moon in Capricorn. So we got a full moon, craziness, and then that energy still lingers into a fireworks special, a big day on July 4th, Independence Day. Here you can see that Venus and Mars do stay parallel. So this intensity between that conjunction, which technically won't ever happen, at least this time around, because Venus will depart, go retrograde, and that happens right here. Venus retrograde, I didn't get the exact date. It's around the 23rd, 24th. And that's about the same time as the sun going into Leo. I thought that was interesting. Venus already in Leo and then starting to retreat. Now, the new moon in Cancer will be on the 17th. These are the exact same dates that we had for the full moon and new moon in June. Just transition those dates into July, and we have a full moon on the 3rd, a new moon on the 17th. All right, so let's go day by day. Thursday, the 29th, we have a brief T-square, so extra focus, extra intensity on Venus and Mars. It's that wanting, the desire, the passion, the flare, the big, just big, not afraid to be seen, wanting to be recognized. the merriment of feminine and masculine, the yin and the yang. Huge focus on this, and big focus on wants and desires, but there's that extra intensity, even though Venus and Mars technically aren't fully conjunct. And right here, we're looking at, I think, 3.5 degrees. Yeah, I think so. 3.5. All right. So the other news is we have a waxing gibbous moon in Scorpio. So this, remember the overall lunar cycle, a waxing gibbous is foot on the accelerator. We're getting things done in this cycle. And remember, it's a Gemini cycle. So we had just not quite 2 weeks ago, a new moon in Gemini. And so we created those Gemini goals of, something along the lines of learning or communication or rational thinking. We have some limitations on rational thinking this week. We'll talk about Mercury next. But in terms of the lunar cycle, this is the time to be getting stuff done. And that's how we can channel the energies coming from the Venus, Mars, parallel and conjunct in a T-square in Leo. All right. So, but with the waxing gibbous moon, this happens to be in Scorpio. So on Thursday, the 29th, expect to be able to passionately, intensely work on the earlier Gemini goals. Let's see here. I promised to talk about Mercury. Mercury is in a combust state. Mercury also in Cancer with the Sun. So what that means is a combust state where the attributes of this planet just happens to be Mercury closing in azimuth-wise in the Sun. So getting burned out. Not burned out as an overwhelmed, but just harder to see. If you look into the Sun, very impossible. It's harder to see Mercury. So it's getting burned out by the Sun, i.e. combust. And so everything in that attribute of that planet is weakened. Then we have accentuating that weakness is Cancer. So Mercury, a more of a air and ground sign, is very mental, very cognition oriented, burned out and weakened in terms of that, but now in the world of emotion and feelings. So a weakened mind, I'm thinking this is going to really force us to feel a lot more, and that'll get accentuated as we move along, especially with the moon, the waxing gibbous moon in Scorpio, another water sign. And a trine over to Saturn just happens to be in another water sign of Pisces. And so we have Mercury trine Saturn. Well, everything's even weakened more, challenged more. So we're having a mental challenge, Saturn, and in a weakened state. So there you go. Heavy on feelings. And even if you don't want to, heavy on feelings. Then we have a sextile, and that's as appropriate on Jupiter. Optimistic Jupiter has 3 sextiles, 3 opportunities. So feeling extra lucky, extra synchronistic, good things happen, opportunities happen, synchronicities await as long as you minimize your lower mental aptitude or lower mental capabilities. Stop thinking so much. It's not working anyway, right? We'll talk all about that in the solution. But mind is maybe not tricky. It's just sort of hazy and hard to remember and harder to communicate because of Saturn and because of Cancer and because it's in a combust state. So a lot there. But the advantage is if you do that right, or do the not expect so much from Mercury, then you invoke this opportunity with Jupiter. You unlock synchronicities. You unlock opportunities, optimism. Things feel a lot better. Okay. And then we have powerful dreams with Neptune, which is going to go retrograde tomorrow, and Pluto. sextile between Pluto and Neptune. Been there for a while, stay there a while. There's an opportunity for powerful dreams in this period. Friday, the 30th. Okay, so here's a big discussion item. First, let's just eliminate the Neptune thing. Shout out to Neptune going retrograde. These retrogrades and these lower planets are not particularly felt. There's much more in the subconscious realm, but a definite influence on you. And with Neptune, it's a double-edged sword, like they all are, is big, powerful dreams, but it also be big, powerful fantasies that you may not know that you're in. So tricky there. And the retrograde has a station in there prior, so that's where that planet's energy really focuses hard, and that's going to be the hours between Thursday night, the 29th, and Friday morning. So those are going to be your big, powerful dreams. All right, with that being said, the big discussion item is this combust. But some people, some astrologers, really want you to think about the cazimi, the Mercury cazimi. That's within 17 minutes of the sun. And instead of being burned out, we have this magnificent, like highly effective and big, powerful, meaningful ability to think and communicate. All things Gemini adapting is in there. However, I'm going to argue that because of all the things we talked about, but most importantly, in the inclination, we don't see Mercury anywhere close to the sun in terms of inclination or vertical component. And so where Mercury is basically staying outside of a cazimi, but some astrologers only use the azimuth. I'm going to propose that there isn't going to be that opportunity, and not just because they're on two different inclinations, but all things considered. Cancer, trine to Saturn, and those are big influences as well. But let's see. How about you guys just remain curious and see whether or not at 6:33 p.m., that's Central Daylight Savings Time on Friday the 30th in the evening, let's see, how does your mind do? Is it just instant, incredible clarity? If so, there's probably a cazimi influence. I'd like to hear from you guys whether or not you personally experience a mental cazimi. I'm going to probably expect not, because of those things I mentioned, because they're not parallel. But at 12 a.m., so this is about midnight Central Time on the 1st, you're going to see the Mercury and Sun go exact in a conjunction azimuth only. And then the end of the cazimi would be at 5:25. So this covers again, Central Daylight Savings Time. This is the end of the cazimi. This is the 17 minutes on the backside after the passing on Mercury. So did you get a cazimi? Did you feel a cazimi? For most of us, we're going to be on this early side. So right before bed on Friday the 30th, check it out. Do you get big mental strength and clarity? If so, you're probably feeling the cazimi. And I would like to know if you feel that. Sunday the 2nd. Sunday, July 2nd. This is where Venus and Uranus are in a perfect square. So this is big pressured change for relationships, potentially. Big change in what you have passions for. Remember, it's in Leo. So creativity's in there, childlike, learning, just curious. Not afraid to be out in the limelight, but all that's changing. And the way you do it is changing. Unexpectedly changing. And this is on Sunday the 2nd, the highest point of that change. All right, Monday is where we get into the big hitters. Full moon in Capricorn. That's 2 exclamation points, probably more, where predictability takes a dump And we start seeing some behaviors that aren't what we expected out of people, because this is a crazy energy. Full moon brings out the unpredictability. And we have 11 degrees and 19 minutes of Capricorn. That's where this full moon is going to take place. And it's at 6:38 a.m. Central Daylight Savings Time. We have some conjunctions happening and some alignments at the time of the full moon, which will affect where the unpredictability is going to be focused in on. So we have the part of fortune is technically conjunct with the full moon in Capricorn. So there's a higher focus. If there wasn't a focus already on the moon, it is really forcing all of us to really pay attention to the full moon in Capricorn. And Capricorn energy is about goals and achievement, sometimes like a leadership context, one over the other, in a goal-oriented sense of indulgence and nourishment. Can really look like escapism or easily going too far. Goal-oriented drinking creates alcoholism. Goal-oriented drug use, and some would say that it's not one leading the other, but the addiction itself becomes the goal. Becomes very goal-oriented, especially when we're talking about Capricorn. Now, this is also important to discuss the other end of the continuum, where we have mental aptitude is back to being a combust. Even if you believe in or experience the Cazimi, then you can expect on Monday the 3rd for mind and mental aptitude to be very weak. Very weak, and that's being shown in the Cancer realm broadcast to the full moon. Then we have the Uranus square passion, i.e. Venus and Mars. And those two, by the way, are still parallel, so very, very intense. Closer yet to each other. And all the other alignments that we talked about. Change in passion and wants continues in this cycle. So when we have the power of the indulgent because of the intensity and the parallels, we have a weakened mind. People aren't going to be acting very rationally. And that's a part of this Mercury combust, but it's also accentuated by just the full moon and a part of fortune in it. So where focus is on the emotions of it all and the feelings, which are going to make people very impulsive or escapist for the ones who can't handle their emotions or not aware of their emotions. Emotional awareness will be a big part of success this week, because if you can be aware of the discomfort of unpredictability, the unknowns, not being able to predict other people's behaviors and reactions, those are also unknowns. But if you can be aware of that discomfort, then you can choose your behaviors. And that will be very important on this day, but the whole week in general. Then the fireworks begin on July 4th. I don't even know where to begin. There's big ones here. I'll start with the Punisher in the flag kind of colors, because we have the recent full moon has progressed to a conjunction with Pluto. And so it's emotionally driven power. And this fuels situations where we may feel out of control. So we have Capricorn, which is very specific about what it wants to get done and goals and objectives, but it's emotionally based. So for a lot of us, those will be obscured because we don't have good emotional awareness. To make things even more hectic is Pluto. So it's over Pluto. Pluto's more of the destroyer, the punisher, the death and rebirth planet, but it's also the planet of control. And so with moon, recent full moon, and Pluto together, very emotionally heavy focus, emotional focus, and feelings on a lack of control, feeling out of control, especially with a trine to Uranus. Change is happening, change and rebirth is happening together, right? Very subconsciously, because these are the slow planets. And hence, you're going to see yourself being more and more controlling, or maybe the desire for more and more control because things feel out of control. And I think that is going to bring out the Punisher. Maybe not in all of us, but that'll be one of the things that you're going to see play out on July 4th. And then we've got Mercury combust. So things aren't working for mind. Things are not very logical. Things are forcing us to feel, continue to feel lots of emotions. And then we have, well, I think that's it. Fireworks, that's enough. That's enough for fireworks. Are any of them real positive? Well, Jupiter still has those sextiles happening. So continue to limit your reliance on mind and thinking, and really learn how to use your intuitive body and feeling body. It's more accurate anyway, especially if you want to know if things are right behaviors for you. In this time, you're going to have to learn how to feel those intuitive senses. So lack of mind will actually open opportunities for positive investment into the future. Jupiter, loose conjunction over the North Node. Jupiter is in between future Uranus and future North Node. So things, even though Taurus is in the present moment, Jupiter is heavily influenced to the future. So you're going to see synchronicities. You're going to feel hope here if you're attuned to it. And all these are limiting, if you notice this. So the feeling is limit, and that can push us, if we bring in the I-Ching, more of I don't have enough, and that can accidentally produce this overindulging thing. All right, because it's on a continuum this week. All right. Oh, you want to know something pretty cool? I thought this was cool. See if I can do it. Well, it won't let me, so I was going to show you July 4th, 2 years from now, but it won't let me select it. So, all right, let's go. Wednesday, last day of our CIRF week, and we have a waning gibbous now. So the moon is in a drawdown phase, the waning, and gibbous, so it's primarily lit up. The major part of the moon is lit up, and it's in Aquarius. So this is the time to kind of sit back and observe what you've done. Learn. That's another Aquarian attribute. Not get too emotionally bent out of shape. Just not judging things. Just kind of looking at how the harvest went. This is the waning gibbous, is mostly kind of a harvest of your overall lunar goals for this lunar cycle. All right, ready to go into the I-Ching. Let's turn this off. Nourishment was very much kind of kind of automatically looking at the sun in Cancer as a very nourishment thing. But all the other alignments pointed to this need for nourishment. This hexagram represents caregiving as well. Probably the first thing that most people think of in nourishment is eating properly, but it implies care for oneself. That's the broader context, is self-care, making sure that I have enough. Providing healthy meals in the home implies caring for the family. It's a very Cancer sort of thing, but the self-care and the care for others can also be a Capricorn thing. These are on the opposite end of the zodiac, so people don't agree, but it's always a continuum. When we look at a full moon, yeah, you got the sun on one side, you got the moon on the other, so it becomes a continuum, and that's a very I-Ching concept, more the The energies are continuums. You can know people by observing what they nourish in their own lives. Do they feed and take care of their bodies? Do they cultivate their spirits, their intellects, their moral values? Do they nourish and care for those around them? Question mark. And then we add in the indulgence of Venus and Mars, which in Leo, in parallel. We know it's going to tip us into the other side of the continuum of indulgement if we're not careful. Line 2, those who earn their daily bread are much happier than those who subsist on the generosity of others. Continuing to be over-reliant on charity brings misfortune. That's a very Capricorn concept. When real nourishment is rejected in favor of junk food, of body or mind, natural strength wanes quickly and significant achievement becomes very difficult. So, for carrying out the full moon benefits in Capricorn, we have to make sure we are nourished. The general must feed his troops daily. This is line 6. Regardless of the circumstances, responsible attitudes lead to good fortune. Responsibility is another concept on the Capricorn side. So we can see the continuum of this full moon threaded throughout. Here's our energy chart. I wanted to post in here the mental aptitude. It's very low. You may or may not see this bump. That's what I would like to know from you all. Did you experience a cazimi? I don't expect it'll be there, but I'm curious. I'm curious to see if you see that or not, or if this is just a kind of continuing combustion, this line. And it starts increasing because Mercury is going past the sun and getting less and less combust. Meanwhile, at the high side of our energy is the Venus and Mars T-square. Starts off strong, and this is more of the indulgent side, and then it goes off the charts at the full moon in Capricorn. We also have, this probably would stay elevated a little bit longer with the moon and Pluto together. It's just big energy, and it's the continuum, nourishment versus indulgence. Do I have enough or do I have too much? May not even know that you're on that continuum, so it's better if you're aware of those emotions. All right, let's finalize our influence chart, and then we'll get into the solution. Here is a dude who is clearly on the indulgent side. Figure out what more he wants to eat and drink. Look at the size of that hamburger. Nourishment versus indulgence. We're from June 29th to July 5th, so that includes July 4th, so let the fireworks begin. A full moon in Capricorn sets the stage for a very transformative July 4th experience. With Mercury combust all week, people aren't expected to act very rational, especially with a continued desire and passion from Mars and Venus conjunct in Leo, and especially with a full moon. Let the fireworks begin. All right, what's next? Let's cover the solution. Transitioning into, when we put the change lines in, we get 11. Hexagram 11 is harmony. And now we're looking for behaviors. By carefully responding to the rhythms and cycles of the times, can we find peace in the natural world? By planting the right crop in the right place at the right season, the mindfulness of the farmer brings harmony to the natural world of plants, and in return, prosperity to his family. Similarly, business needs to adjust to the natural cycles of the different seasons. The wise person channels the positive energy to all areas of life and in proper proportion. See? So, ironically, we had the influences, the continuum of not enough, too much. And now the solution is to figure out that balance, to see that there is a balance point in each moment, because the pendulum is not stagnant. It keeps moving. So there's cycles happening, and day in, day out, hour in, hour out, minute in, minute out, this thing is changing. And so what was appropriate last minute may not be appropriate now. So we need to be in the flow, and we know that the flow continues to change. The energies change. Be vigilant and discriminating. Peaceful conditions promote the growth of weeds as well as flowers. That's an interesting concept. The same thing as you bodybuild, it's impossible to build just muscle and no fat. It's the tissue that increases. Hopefully you have more muscle than fat, but it's impossible to have no fat increase when you are in growth mode. And weightlifting, same kind of concept. All right, so we put our conversion chart in, and this is at the time of the full moon, so Monday, 6:38 Central Time AM, and it's conjunct with the part of fortune. It's in Capricorn, 11 degrees 19 minutes, and that puts us in Rave Gate 38, and it gives us Sidereal Sagittarius. So Gate 38 is the ability to preserve individual integrity through opposition to detrimental forces. So you can already start to see the triangulation happening. The I-Ching says get into harmony with the cycles, stay in the flow, and then we are to preserve our individual integrity, not by just worrying about ourselves, but through direct opposition to any forces that are keeping us from it. And we need to do so in a polite way. That's the only requirement according to the Rave. Opposition that does not transgress normal codes of behavior. So we're not going to go be all sporadic and unpredictable. We're going to be in that normal basket, normal codes of behavior in politeness, but we are going to oppose any detrimental forces to our personal integrity. All right, here's our overall solution. And let's go. Remember, we had the I-Ching 11, be in harmony. Then the Rave says, preserve our individual integrity, but through opposition of detrimental forces. That's kind of a fight, kind of a conflict there, willingly, but we have to. Otherwise, we get taken over, and then we end up out of harmony. Fortunately, we get the Sagittarius that is good with both of those. So here we go. With all the unpredictable influences expected this week, it's vital that you remember and follow the triangulated solution. Never go against the laws of nature. Get into divine harmony with the natural cycles and rhythms of life. This also involves constantly watching for shifts in the flow and then altering your behaviors accordingly. So you feel like this is the right activity to do, and you start doing it, but then you get sucked in so much that you're not aware that the pendulum is still swinging, and now you're out of flow again because you're continuing to do that one project. So you have to stay in tune with the changing energies, the changing cycles. Okay, divine harmony is what we're looking for. It's basically a minute by minute surfing. And so look for the signs that you're not in the constantly changing flow. You'll start to notice that you might feel out of control a little bit more, might be more rigid, might produce anxiety. It might produce anger, irritation, irritableness. You might have a lot more mental judgments than normal. Remember, what is this? These are the signs that you're out of flow. Maybe that's just a non-genuineness. You feel like you're self-sacrificing. You're walking on eggshells. It's not wrong. It's just out of flow. Samsara is from the East, and it says that you're up in your head and you don't even know it. You're lost. You're in your dream state and don't know it. It's a state of hell. Because where mind goes, body follows. But it doesn't stop with just self. Take the bold, expansive, optimistic, sidereal Sag and carry out the rave. With polite and socially appropriate behavior, we must oppose anyone and anything that goes against the natural rhythms and natural law. Free will, for example, is a natural law. Enforce it, demand it. Your personal preservation depends on our collective opposition. But your personal integrity, your individual preservation, depends on your own opposition of those detrimental forces. So the statement that I'm going to try and remember and rehearse is, I follow the natural rhythms with every heartbeat, and I remain balanced. I remain poised. And I look for these signs not as a self-judgment and push myself back in there into the flow, but as a curiosity and an indicators, and help me stay in the flow. Because if I see these things, rigidity, anxiety, maybe irritable, then I'm out of the flow again. So I need to know, what is the quickest way? What should I be doing now to stay in the flow? And the concentration this week, more than likely, because it's the influence, the main balance point is, do I have enough or am I too much? It's nourishment versus indulgent. And I ran out of time for the runes. So if any of you have ideas on runes that we should invoke, I'm all ears. Please comment below if you can help out in that regard. I just didn't have time. So I'll do that a little bit later so that I know what to put into my beard, especially on July 4th. Happy 4th, everybody. Happy birthday, not for me to say. Bless all of you. Thank you for your support, your follows. Welcome to the new people. And good luck to the USA. Cheers, everybody.